The second podcast of Crate now includes our third member of the team, Dan Cook.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
It is so good to have you here.
Good to be here.
If I just dive into a little bit of authenticity, the first thing that we did, I felt quite nervous, being all out there, and I settled in quite well into the podcast. It was surprisingly warm and comfy, and it's nice.
Good.
I really liked it. Welcome back to our CEO and our founder, Kaiser
Be
Walden.
here. What up, fam?
All good,
Hey,
mate.
Richard, Dan.
What we didn't have in the first one was a beautiful introduction to storytelling, how we begin, what it is that we're doing.
Oh. Wow.
And with that, we kick off the second podcast. On today's agenda, we are going to be talking about something that is crucial to our baby, our little startup, our project that is essentially connecting artists and DJs. Great. And what we will be talking about today is, why are we doing it? What are the things that have brought us together as people to put this together and to essentially help build the vision of our founder and our CEO, and why this is so important for us to do? Not just for him as a visionary, as a DJ and a producer, but just for our industry and how it's going to help potentially, eventually, millions of people. So, Kaiser, if I have to ask you in the most simplistic of terms, what is it that you are trying to do with Crate?
Crate's been a very interesting journey so far, and what we can get into the interesting side another time in terms of how we got to where we are. What I do want to talk about is, what are the values? What's our why? Why are we doing this? And it's very, very personal to me, because I am a producer and DJ and an event promoter. I love everything about the music. Like any industry, there's positives and negatives, but essentially it really is all about the people and the music and those two things. And we discussed, like last episode, how we connected, you and I, through a record label that I was signed to, a German label. And here you are now, head of marketing for a music project. And that all came about through music. And these are the things that we don't see. These are the things that we don't notice that are happening with what music can do to all of us, right? So it's really organic for me to share what we're about. Our why, I have this belief, we covered it quite a lot in the last episode, talking about social media.
Yes.
And all the platforms that artists need to be on just to be in the game, quote unquote, to hustle, and self-promote. And one of the interesting things is there's no end in sight to that process either. So there's no, this is the answer, this is the answer. All these platforms are essentially competing with each other for people's attention. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Crate's why is born from a belief, an idea, because of blockchain technology has made it possible for artists to start changing their view. We need to change our view, guys. And I'm talking to anyone who's an artist who's listening. And I'm going to explain why throughout this podcast. I'm going to explain the change. And I'm going to let you sit with that new idea that's not new, but is a new ability in the digital realm. Okay? So, firstly, why are we doing this? I really want more and more people to look at making music and DJing as a viable career option. That would mean a lot to me, because all the people that I've met are incredibly interesting people with interesting talents, and the richness of that really inspires me. All the music I make is inspired or subconsciously or consciously influenced by other artists. So the more people making, the richer the scene is, whatever that scene of sounds. So Crate has a belief which kind of stems from my belief, but essentially people that get involved in this community all share the same belief that artists should spend more time creating and being inspired and sharing and learning things that they've always wanted to learn. Dan and I had a little chat just before, if you could pick the bass or the guitar, which one would you do? And I think what was your response?
Well, it's like trying to choose your favourite child.
Right. So it's like imagine if Dan had time to give each child, the bass and the electronic guitar equal attention to develop those, right? And really, it's such a lifelong commitment. Even if you're a hobbyist and you dabble or you want to, be a professional and do it as a daily practice or a consistent practice. So I believe that people really do love enjoying making music, and people love looking for music, and people love playing music, because I love all of those aspects. And I believe that if people were given a chance, they could do more of that. I also believe that music should do the talking more than artists or the marketing machines. And I believe that DJs should be compensated for the time they're going to spend looking for these artists, because DJs are so important. DJs and artists. And I think you said at the start, Crate, connecting DJs and artists. That's essentially what we are. We're about connecting. And we're about connecting the people that we love and the people that we appreciate. And they're artists who are incredible. Many artists are DJs. And many DJs don't want to be an artist per se, because their artistry is the collecting. Their artistry is the dig. Or their artistry is actually the craft of DJing, which is a bit of a dying art to an extent, because I do feel for some of the DJs that probably feel pressured that they need to become a producer just to stand out, when they could be spending more time developing their DJ sets, spending more time on their transitions and tricks, or maybe not spending more time on tricks and just being appreciated for their sophistication in their mixing.
Absolutely.
Right? And, so this, notion. And then you have DJs that are really good DJs getting to producing and absolutely suck at it, right? And just have a whole different take on that. And probably get a bit shy because they realize, there's actually a lot of work that goes into making music. I don't have the time to do that. I'm going to pay someone else to make music. So all of these things I think have a negative effect on our industry.
Yeah.
One, if an artist can't spend much time doing what they want to be doing, that's being creative and being inspired, we're going to have less music flying around out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Which means less jams, less hits, less opportunities to connect, inspire other people to do their art. So there's this whole thing where the more art, the more inspiration, the richer the community. Yeah. You've got DJs that are no longer incentivized in the digital economy to spend hours looking for music, So that dying art of crate digging in the digital realm changes behavior, because incentive drives behavior. What we are as people incentivized to do will ultimately govern what we can do. If I've got 8 hours to prepare my sets for the weekend and I don't have the time to look for rare tracks, I'm going to take shortcuts naturally. So I'm not hating on the DJs that don't spend hours looking for tracks, but there is a way now that we can actually give the power back to DJs who have a bit of a gift in finding a track digitally. Vinyl people would look at us going, mate, you think, you're digging. I've got to go get on a train or get on a car and drive the other end of town to go between my places of buying music. They all have their kind of secret stores and their secret relationships with the record store guys that know their taste. And again, there's that connection, right? In vinyl culture, the DJs have their go-to shops, and the store guy, depending on your relationship with him, might mean if you get one of the exclusive test press, right? And that connection became a lost art. Dan, I think you worked for a music store just at the transition of vinyl to digital.
Yeah, around 2005.
2005.
Yeah, it was around the same time as CDJ 1000s came out.
Yeah.
So that was, quite controversial in itself, because that people didn't see people using CDJs as real DJs,
There's all
and now it's like
Yeah.
it's a standard.
True.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
true.
And so DJs being able to spend more time looking for music is really healthy for artists, because the more time a DJ is trying to find you, the better chance an artist have, and that cultivation starts happening, right? The circle of life
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
DJ and artist culture ecosystem, probably a better word. So we've got DJs being able to dig. We've got producers that can spend more time creating. Those two things should be compensated for financially to incentivize that, to sustain that. If I can make a living making music, I'm going to, in theory, be able to make more music, or
Exactly.
get better at making music, whether that's learn another instrument, have another outlet, have another perspective to communicate, create another alias with a totally different sound that's inspired by my other sound but has other inspirations, so you get
Yeah.
really interesting cross-pollination of ideas. And that's what really, being honest, if we didn't have blockchain technology where it's at now with NFTs, non-fungible tokens, this dream of mine and vision of mine that I believe so strongly in would not be possible. And this is where we start coming into the fact that now, for the first time ever, when I say now, this technology has sort of been around for a few years, but it's still very early in its adoption and very early in its understanding, especially our community. You ask someone in our community about crypto and things like that, and they think, what is that?
Yeah,
I'm still struggling maintaining a Spotify account, let alone, a new technology that has nothing to do with music. But now this is what we're going to do. We're going to change the paradigm. It has everything to do with music.
Yeah.
Everything. This is something you must learn about so you can make a decision. Nothing is more sad and tragic than an artist going, I don't understand that. I'm not going to investigate. Because if someone says to me, Kaiser, you know what, I looked into NFTs and how it can help me as an artist or a DJ, not interested, that's a good answer, because at least they've done their own research and they've made a decision.
Yeah, I can appreciate that.
Right? That's cool. It's like, yeah, man, no worries. But if people don't know how this is going to change their lives and they keep thinking that they're going to follow this system that doesn't work, I mean, I'm going to drop a stat here, and I know Dan pulls me up on this stat a little bit. I think which one it is. And this is from the, what's the
IMS report.
The IMS report, the 2022. Yeah. And it's a crazy stat about 11,160 or 16 artists or so only make 65 grand per annum US a year off their sales. Now, just to articulate, because Dan keeps me honest, by sales, this is talking a rough calculation on Spotify streams. So this is on music downloads.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I get that right?
That's
Dan?
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
good. Okay, we got it. We got it in there, fellas. We got the stat in there. And it's important not to mislead, because this report does class streams and downloads as sales, right? But in this context, we're talking about streams. That's a frightening statistic, because that's 11,000 people. No, is it 1,000? We might have to bring this up. You're going to have to be our de facto Jamie,
Give me 1 second.
Richard. So
I've got
I'll
us
keep
hooked up.
talking about this point. The point is this report, which by the way is available on the Crate website,
NFT.co.
CrateNFT.co. You can sign up for the IMS report, or you can get it directly from the IMS site for those people that want to really get an insight into the industry, the shape of the industry, and the health of it in 2021.
Sorry to break your word. The stat is 1,650 artists earn 65K from their music
Nobody.
annually.
That's nobody, and that's out of 130,000 core artists. And
Yeah.
they define a core artist as an artist that has 100 plays a month on Spotify and
You're a-
100 followers.
That's
so by
you.
definition, I'm a core artist,
Yeah.
and core artist makes you think like, oh, that person's full-time. I ain't full-time, The only way I substitute most of my income is from DJing. So if I don't gig, I don't earn, and that's what subsidizes my production. But imagine, right? This is the life-changing concept. imagine being able to offset your time as a producer with a dollar value for the first time.
It's monumental.
It's monumental because that means that all those people that don't have the time to gig but love dance music or love just making music, let's forget about dance, love making music, have their home studios, have the setup, have had probably a lot of industry experience and might have written a lot of well-known tracks in their day, can now pull off the sheets of the synthesizers and get cracking again and start to generate income from their art.
It's mind-blowing to me to think that for the first time in a long time, you can spend all of your time that you would like in studio making music, and all of that can be compensated.
Well, I mean, the music has to sell for that to be compensated. But the point is now for the first time, because of blockchain and NFTs, you can create digital scarcity. And by creating digital scarcity, the simple economic model of supply versus demand now can start working into your favor and you can establish your equilibrium. So one of the things that you asked me, Richard, in the last podcast was, what's my kind of number of songs that I want to make and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
And I think, like, leading on to that, what's an equilibrium mean for an artist that can all of a sudden now create their supply and demand with their music? You know, because every artist is going to be different. Every artist has a different amount of followers, a different amount of engagement from his audience, and is at a different stage of their cycle. Are they, trending? Are they, on the way up, or are they losing a bit of followers because they haven't done much for a while? And
yeah,
a little bit forgotten about, but and whatnot. And so now with NFTs, an artist can, let's say we've got someone that only has 1,000 followers, but some of the biggest guys in the industry are playing his music, and he's not active, not an active DJ. He plays at his local club. He's got his residency gig maybe once or twice a month, but he's got 3 kids and he's got to support his family. I mean, Dan, you can relate to this a little bit, being a father.
Yeah.
And knowing that all of a sudden your life's responsibilities change where, if you spend 2 days in the studio a week and there's no money to be made against that time in the form of sales, it's very hard to justify, right?
Yeah, just it's not a priority.
It's not a priority, so all of a sudden we lose such a big pool of art that could have been created because the setup is already there. All these home studios exist. So part of our why is to help these people reconnect with something that they love and allow them to create their own limited editions. For example, let's say somebody's out there who used to DJ quite a lot, has a family now and can no longer sustain that kind of DJing and had to pick up a different type of work totally outside of the industry to support his family, but he still kept everything, still got his studio, he's still got his sound, he still listens to dance music when he's driving and when he can, right? And now he can go, right, I'm gonna write a track and I'm gonna put up 100 copies because I've still got about 2,000 followers. I'm still getting streams on my music that I made 10 years ago, That's also another thing to point out. This guy hasn't released for 10 years, but people are still buying or streaming that track.
Yeah.
Right? Because certain things happen in underground. I don't know about other genres, but in the underground, you can write a timeless song that sounds like it was written last week. And this is the power, again, to the digger, because the person that's new to the scene, when I first got into the scene, I'm like, wow, this track's so fresh. And the DJ will be like, mate, this is 10 years old.
Crazy.
Like, what? No way, And that, to me, is gold. That is absolutely gold. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to reactivate these people. Excuse me. So our why and what keeps us up doing our late hours is to push on to be able to create a community where artists can have a greater chance at making a living off their music because they can determine the supply of their songs digitally. And I want to expand on how that is made possible. DJs can spend time digging for music and we can start having a community that's working closer together.
I love that
on
word.
those 2 aspects.
Community. It means so much. If I may interject, Kaiser, just to unpack a very interesting term that you brought up, digital scarcity. As a producer and a DJ, I am more of a DJ. I love digging like you cannot believe. As a DJ, trying to understand the terminology that we're using. Explain digital scarcity to me using something that I know, vinyl culture.
So vinyl culture, it survived the transition from digital to physical. It's robust. The IMS report says that vinyl sales are up 51% across all vinyl. There's probably a few things for that, a few factors that have caused that growth, right? If you look at it, for the people that are watching this podcast, you can see the cover art around, you've got Defected, Subliminal, Atlantic, we've got Prodigy, we've got Cassius, Beatles. The cover art, the tangibility of vinyl forms an artist to have a much different connection to it, to the song, a much more tangible connection that was lost in digital, obviously. Plus, the most important thing is the mindset of vinyl is different to digital culture, right? Digital culture says you need to hustle, you need to be everywhere, and you need to make sure that you're on every possible platform so you don't miss out on a potential sale because you need to squeeze every single sale out of it. Really, that's not what you need to do. Because if we look at vinyl culture, there are so many artists out there that have decided, you know what? I'm going to release on vinyl only. So if you want my music as a DJ, you have to buy my record. And there are probably a ton of artists out there that only release on vinyl.
Oh, yeah, loads.
Loads,
Yeah.
right? So instead of having this mindset, and this is what we're going to talk about, we should title this paradigm, the paradigm switch to prosperity and abundance,
Yeah.
right? This is a way of thinking because people are like, no, how can NFTs work in digital? Because people need to be everywhere. And we just look at vinyl. And the mindset is if someone wants my music, they have to get it by buying my record. They can probably consume the track on a stream, but if they want to buy and replay my track like a DJ would, they need to buy it. And they do. And the ones that aren't that keen on you don't do that. So it works out to be a filter because your customers are your true fans. And they're the people that you're interested in. They're the people that you want to connect with.
Yes.
So back to the vinyl thing, right? Back to relating it to vinyl and the scarcity. Now, with NFTs, we're able to recreate that whole concept, but in a digital world, but so much more because there's no wear and tear on NFT music. And just to clarify, the music is still hosted on, for example, for Crate, on our servers, just like what you would expect on iTunes or Beatport. But the NFT is hosted on the blockchain, which can't be altered. So essentially, when you're buying the NFT to a song, you're buying the certificate saying, Richard, you are the authentic owner of this Atlantic record, right? This is your record to sell at your choosing. But because you've only bought one copy, you can only sell one copy.
True.
Right? So that really changes the game with the whole industry. Really does.
And I think it changes for both sides, for the DJ and the producer.
Yeah.
And you're coming at it from the producer side for how it's going to help them earn more money, but it's also going to help DJs get more bookings.
Yeah.
Because there's a limited amount of DJs who have this track, and if you're one of the first ones to get on board, you're going to get more bookings. You can charge more money because you've got the best collection.
I mean, imagine that, exactly, because that's what happens. I used to go, there's a guy in Bali who's one of my closest mates, James Taylor, DJ. I used to go and watch him in Sydney because he had certain records.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
And venues will start booking artists based on their collection. So DJs will be very encouraged to collect. But again, I think, Dan, what you said, be the first to get the track. How many times, and I'm talking to you DJs that are listening, how many times have you been the first person in your tribe or your area or community to play that song only to see the next week or the week later, everyone's all over that song? Imagine now you can actually lay credit to that because when people look up to buy that song, they can see that you were the first owner. In fact, for them to get that song, they need to get it off you.
Yeah.
Right? And unlike in vinyl culture where you sell to the distributors and they distribute in the record stores and on the online stores, with NFTs, as a producer, you can see which DJs are playing your music out and buying your records. So you can start, again, here's this word, connecting. This is the game changer. This is why our tagline is connecting artists and DJs, right? I can now see all the people that have bought my song, right? We have that already in the digital industry. It's called label promo. So promo drops. InFlight's probably one of the most common platforms that labels use promo service. But that's kind of self-defeating because all the DJs that matter get your track for free. So really the only people that are buying it are the people that aren't working in the clubs anyway.
True.
Right? So you're losing out on a lot of money giving away the song for free to artists that a lot of them, like, Dan, let's talk about this. Let's talk about DJ promo because I'm probably part of most of the lists that you're on.
Yeah.
But I don't like getting my music from a promo service mainly because I'm not in control of the dig and it's like I just have a different buying preference, right? Even though there's a lot of music getting sent to me.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a whole different experience. And a lot of people might be promo only types as well.
Yeah, I mean, I like going through my promos.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
But especially when you get stuff that's pre-release, pre-radio, pre-release, and you know there's only probably a handful of people who've got this. I like that.
Yeah.
That's what appeals to me about
Yeah.
getting promos, and obviously getting them for free. That's
Bit
a
of
bonus.
scarcity as well
Yep.
in that concept. Tell me just a broad number. How many promos are you getting on a weekly basis, give or take?
Over 100,
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe 3/4 of them I would never play out anyway.
Yeah.
But, you know, you got to react to them to keep receiving them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then maybe 1/4 of them I would actually like, and then half of them I might actually play out.
And on the other side to that, you know, I think we connected because Goran heard Claptone play one of my tracks.
Yes.
I don't know Claptone, right? I mean, I know who they are as an artist, but I don't personally have a relationship where I can get them my track. So
How did he get it?
they've through promo,
Right.
right? So they've done a Dan, listen to the track, put it in their podcast, right, in their Clapcast because of that. So I was able to, you know, get verified, I guess, from a big artist because of the music did the talking, not me relying on a friendship or a relationship, you know. And there's something really cool about that because how awkward is it to get big DJs that have higher profiles than you do to play your music if they're not your friends? And how do you become friends with them in the first place? Because these people are so busy and everyone wants something from them. So they're not really the most open type people.
Yeah.
I know what I'm like when I'm in the zone. I'm not looking for new friends. I'm so focused on my work, you know, and I'm kind of shut down a bit because I'm using that open energy and that openness when I'm creating or getting inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's going to be a really big changer because now producers will be able to connect with diggers like Dan and start going, wow, Dan's bought the last 3 tracks of mine and he's been the first each time. I'm going to start saving records. I'm going to start saving tracks, NFT tracks for him and giving him an opportunity to buy them before anyone else. I'm going to build that connection, just like the record store guy has the connection with the DJ, sort of like a gatekeeper, but you become your own gatekeeper. You know, the best scenario that I can foresee for a producer is he's got his 100 DJs around the world that love his music and they're the first ones to buy, and he acknowledges them for letting them buy the track at the cheapest. So like Dan's like my boy, he always buys my tracks, you know, so I'm going to give him the first opportunity to buy it for $1.
We might not even meet.
Yeah.
You don't even need to meet.
I want to mean this guy though, like, you know what I mean? Like, what a G, you know, and I only have to deal with Dan and 99 guys like him, and all I have to do on social media is post my track. I don't have to really worry about the traction or whatever, just so people who look me up can see, oh, these are his releases. It's like more like a portfolio.
True.
And I've already got my crew. But how am I going to find my crew in the current climate? You know, am I going to write back to people that leave promo reviews? Hey, man, thanks for doing the promo review. I mean, the success rate of that, because, again, people are so busy because they're on all these platforms. They got no time, you know. Very rarely do people spend the time to respond and to stuff like that. So the best way for me is, man, Dan's bought 3 of my tracks, last 3 releases. I'm going to hit this guy up and offer my next track to him cheaper. So now there's an incentive for Dan to be like, hey, man, this producer that I like is making me part of his crew. That concept is also what's now possible with Crate and NFT technology
It's like
that we haven't had in the past. That
Yeah.
efficient.
Yeah. It's like you're taking the concept of community even just one level deeper. So not only are you bringing artists and DJs together to form these relationships, but you can then almost amass a little community within
Yeah,
the
we're
community.
giving power back to producers, power back to DJs to govern themselves, instead of gatekeepers,
Yeah.
right? I'm all for people that have platforms because it really makes our lives easier. But why can't we start building the relationship? If I knew all the people that bought my music on Beatport, at least the very least I can do is a little bit of gratitude and be like, hey man, thanks for the support. Yeah. Because you've been supporting, I'm going to give you a jump and allow you to get my next track before it's released, because people like Dan appreciate that. I appreciate that as a DJ.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a big part of it.
It's really a beautiful thing to be able to offer people such an opportunity where they can form connections. Because even in the social media world with so many numbers, so many metrics, if you can have 100 guys that that when you buy or release a piece of music, every single one of those guys are going to snap it up.
Yep.
That is the ultimate level of connection in terms of the whole digital spectrum, because the levels, the numbers, the engagements, everything with the current model, it's so vast that it's like dropping your track into oblivion, literally. It gets seen by nobody, it gets heard by nobody, and you just literally have to hope for the best.
And then the other thing too is if they see that oblivion and they go, oh, there's been no pickup on this, there's been no uptake on this, it's 3 months old, that also can be perceived as a negative.
Absolutely.
Right, so it's just another drop in the ocean. But what happens if that track is an absolute gem, but because we don't have as many crate diggers as we should, it literally, that is actually, imagine being a producer, right, and you write consistently good tracks and you don't get discovered until your 13th track. And you're sitting on 12 tracks that have already been released, and you're starting to think to yourself, man, I mean, I'm playing these songs and in my gigs and they're working, and I'm getting a really positive reaction, and a few of my friends around me are supporting the songs, but that's about it. And imagine Jamie Jones going, if only I had that track, I would have definitely played it in this set and signed this artist, because he's consistent. He's sitting on 11 other tracks, but because they're already released and a blip in the ocean, it
begs the question, like, how many artists have we lost to that level of despondency that after so many tracks that you have worked so hard for, that essentially, statistically, perhaps on average, that maybe your 13th, 14th, or your 15th song is the one that really, gets you noticed. How many guys maybe got up to song number 9 and they were just like, you know what,
early.
I'm done.
Just got despondent. Yeah.
I'm done with this. Like, it's too much time, it's too much effort, and for what?
How many DJs, right, started checking out because they couldn't dig, because they figured out that there's no incentive and they just can't compete anymore with the 19-year-old kid who doesn't have kids, doesn't have a family, that can spend more time following other artists and playlists.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let alone the social media side
Let
of it.
alone the social media side,
I mean,
right?
that's what really breaks my heart, is the idea of producers out there who have given up, and because they can't put aside 2-3 hours a day creating Instagram stories and posting on Facebook and Twitter and doing all their live streams every night.
It's intense, man.
Like,
It's like if you look at a picture of a jagged graph, then the first snap in the graph is where you basically are doing your production, and you just think that you summit the mountain, you get to the top, and it dips, and you see an even bigger climb, and it's actually it's the social media that you still have to get through. We spoke about something the other day in terms of crate digging, where you could go through 100, maybe 150 songs, and literally choose one.
Yeah, I actually was sent something the other day where this guy is setting up basically a promo pool, DJ pool kind of service, where it's like you could spend less time digging. And he was going with the stat of you can spend 1 hour digging and find maybe 10 to 15 tunes. And I was shocked at that. And I was like, I'm lucky if I find 1 or 2 after an hour, especially on Beatport and places like that where
Exactly.
it's hard to find something that's up my street.
Exactly.
And if it's not in the top 100, then you really got to start digging through the labels and that. And yeah, 15 tunes in an hour. I'll be like, wow, there's so much good music out right now. If I'd found 15, and that's like 15 tracks. That's basically, if I was DJing out, that would be an hour-long set.
Exactly.
I'd probably play maybe 15 to 20 tracks in an hour.
Imagine 3 hours of digging, and you come up with, say, 45 tracks.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
That would be...
So I don't know where this guy got his stats from, but...
He needs to give us a link to where it is that he's doing his digging.
Yeah, or maybe he's just got a lower threshold of what makes a grade.
Dan, let's talk about some vinyl hunting. Back in the day, what was your experience with when you wanted to collect vinyl or actually start, just adding more tracks, vinyls to your set? What was the experience like? Did you have to do any traveling? Were there any specific record shops that you liked?
Yeah, I mean, where I grew up, there was one record store, but there was that kind of set. I mean, I was a kid then, and it wasn't the most welcoming environment. Like, it was a kind of cliquey sort of thing, and if you're not confident and if you're new to the game, then they kind of look down on you a little bit, which I found kind of odd, which kind of pushed me towards when digital happened, and I was like, well, actually this is nicer for me. But like, my dad was a huge record collector, so I grew up around vinyl. Like, I'm looking at Abbey Road just over there, and my dad's got the first pressing of a lot of Beatles, a lot of Rolling Stones, a lot
prolific.
And I mean, that's probably worth a lot of money now. He probably bought them for 50p in the 70s, and now they're probably worth 50 quid.
And they're still in good condition?
They are mint condition.
Oh, wow.
My mum's not so much.
Yeah.
But my dad used to take care of all of his vinyl. Like, he wouldn't let me touch his decks. Like, it was he was very, very careful with his stuff, and they're all in mint condition. They're still in my mum's house now. And that's kind of a parallel with NFTs now. Like, if you buy a track for like £10 now, in 50 years' time, that might be worth a couple of grand.
Get in early.
Yeah.
10 years' time, maybe even 10 months.
Yeah.
It's all dependent on the quality of the track, how often it changes hands.
And the scarcity of it.
The scarcity, yes.
Such an important thing. Originals
and one of the most important things in terms of how creators doing things is how royalties happen between purchases. So you can essentially have a song, gets released on Crate, exclusive to Crate. Somebody buys it. It picks up some steam, increases in value as it changes hands. Not only are the people who are selling the NFT with the song attached to it making money, but the person who originally made the song at the very beginning,
he's going to get a 20%.
He continues to collect royalties throughout that whole system, and it's all transparent.
Yeah, if you compare that to the having old rare vinyl, the person who bought that and 30, 40, 50 years ago and then sells it, he's keeping all that cash.
True.
Like, Paul McCartney's not seeing a penny of that.
True.
But in an NFT, the original producer's going to be getting a slice, 20%, 30%, whatever they set it at, each time it changes hands.
Absolutely. And one of the beautiful things, like when I talk to Kaiser about Crate and how the platform is being developed and how simple it's going to be to use, it's like nothing changes in terms of how DJs and producers interact. The user experience, to use that term, is so similar. It's going to be like you're coming home, essentially, as somebody who shops online for music. But the mechanics driving it beneath are so much better for artists that it just changes everything that's happening for the guys. And one of the easiest ways for me to understand what NFTs are, it's basically a certificate of ownership that cannot be changed anywhere. It sits on the blockchain. Once you have it, there's no way for anybody to alter it. There's no way for it to be hacked. It proves everything. It keeps things transparent. And basically, there's nobody that can take it away from you, essentially. And getting into it and being a part of this whole system, it's going to be so easy, man. So easy. It's just going to be like buying and selling the way that you used to. It's just the mechanism in which that we are building it upon is better for everybody. It's better for the community. And everything about that is such a beautiful thing, and it could only have happened now because of the way the technology has evolved to give us that platform, and the fact that we are in a place within society and within our community where that can have an impact for us because we need it so, so badly. Producers and DJs, we need something that is going to change the way that we are making money from the things that we love doing.
Think about the pandemic. What the hell did most of the DJs do to survive? You know, when we know that it affected most of the artists because most of the artists make music from make their income from DJing. But what about touring, the DJs that have zero income from any kind of royalty, no matter how low it is? What about those guys? You know, I'm not talking about the people that get into DJing and love the kind of the exposure or the attention side. I'm talking about the people that literally pride themselves on digging for music. You know, the unglamorous thing of searching for tracks. There's even a bit of an art to that in the digital space. And I'm not going to try to compete with vinyl guys because what those guys have to do, I commend them, you know, the distance they need to cover, or if they're an avid vinyl collector online, the amount of different people they're trying to buy secondhand records off. One point to note that with Crate and NFT tech, there's no wear and tear, right? So another thing that you get a bit of a challenge with in vinyl culture is if when you get a very good track and you want to make sure you want to maintain the, I think you were talking about this earlier, you know, in a bit of a way, in quality on the conditions kept in, right? If you want to maintain maximum resale value, it's got to have minimal wear and tear. So that's, you know, what we can do now for the first time ever in the digital ecosystem is you get all the best attributes except for the tangibility. You know, nothing is going to take away that from vinyl. The big cover art, the big record,
just
the needle,
the sound,
the aesthetic, right? That's you know, that's a David and Goliath type comparison where a comparison can't be made. They're just two completely separate systems of music, right? But some of the best qualities we can now reproduce in the digital world. So what I want to talk about today is why artists and DJs need to understand NFTs are here to stay, and to give anyone listening the best possible information for them to go, okay, that guy has explained it to me in a way that I can relate to. Now I understand what this is. I'm going to keep an eye on it, or I'm going to investigate more and do their own due diligence, do their own research, and give people a bit of a chance, because the sooner people can wake up to this and the sooner artists get into the mindset of holding their music off and starting to select different NFT platforms to release their music on, the better it's going to be for the whole industry.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to take time. That might take 3 to 5 years. You know, who knows? The uptake and the adoption, we don't know how long it's going to take, but what we do know is every artist that gets in late is going to be at a slight disadvantage because it's going to take longer for their music to circulate.
True.
Right? Because most of the good tracks are those gems dropped in the ocean that we've never heard. You know, any label that believes that they're sitting on really good tracks that had low sales volume, we want to know. We want to get to know you guys. We want you guys to send us some music. Anyone that feels that their track, which got a good reaction in crowds, but just really didn't quite break through, we want to hear from you. We want to hear the tracks. We want to hear from you. We want to see how we can help you guys, you know, get into this NFT space with that music. Touching on what Dan and you, Richard, were talking about earlier, one of the absolute game changers, and this helps, and sorry I'm using a lot of big words here, guys, a lot of buzzwords to everyone listening, but it really is a whole lot of things that are happening at once that's creating this incredible opportunity. Reoccurring royalties. That doesn't really happen in vinyl. Well, it doesn't trickle back to the artist. Like you said, imagine all of those limited pressings that were getting circulated on the secondhand market and the artist getting a slice of that. That's life-changing, because it's impossible to hear all the music in the world. You know, some of my friends who pride themselves on knowing every track, that's bullshit. You know, you don't know every track in the genre. Sorry, buddy. You know, it's pretty funny people that know that. And because it's a simple time versus, listening time equation.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
How can you know every track if there's only 24 hours in a day and you're not listening to tracks 24 hours a day? So don't ever be disheartened when someone says that they know all the tracks, because someone's just been pulling your chain.
Well, do you know how many tracks are uploaded to Beatport every day? It's
14,000, is it?
It's thousands.
That is insane.
Yeah. I mean, even when I was working for smaller download stores, I was making the preview files myself individually. Each track before it went on sale, I'd have to run it into SoundForge, give it a little 30-second clip, find a little bit of the breakdown, the build up, the drop, try and get that into the 30-second clip.
Crazy, man.
And I was just pumping that out 8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
How many songs could you get through making previews?
Well, I got smart and I automated the process. But the first year when I was like doing data entry and I was low down, this is when I was maybe about 19 years old. I don't know how many I could have gone through.
That's about 6 years ago, eh?
It's about 16 years ago.
16.
Just a small joke.
Funny guy. Yeah, I'll take that. Well, it would have been a few hundred a day.
Wow.
And it would have 3 of us doing it. Sat in a room like this, just plugging away, just getting deliveries from the distributors or directly from the labels.
That's
FTP.
intense, man.
I don't think music was ever designed to be industrialized, like a production line, because it's such a personal experience to digest.
Oh, it's like a sweatshop, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right? So it's such a personal experience to digest. How many of us, I'm guilty of this, right? I do this. How many of us listen to a track and skip through it, scanning a track for like 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds?
Yeah.
That's what the world's come to, where we have to make a decision. You know, when I'm getting like 50 tracks for the weekend, I'm going, yep, yes or no. I mean, imagine how many tracks, and we've all been there when we've heard a track on, this track's amazing, watching a DJ played in a club, and then you Shazam it, or you ask him what it is, or he tells you whatever, and you come back and you go, man, I got that track 2 weeks ago, but in my scanning mode,
I
didn't
didn't
pick
like
up on it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And all the big labels are doing this when they're listening to your music. Unless your relationship with an A&R guy is rock solid and they're actually a friend, not just a business associate, no one's going to give your track the airtime. And a lot of music needs that airtime. And that's why underground clubs are so important to the music ecosystem, because they're incentivized to play tracks longer and not race through them just to get a crowd reaction, because DJs don't freak out if the crowd isn't doing an aerobics class and putting their hands up in the air and then moving them to the side and doing all these kind of things.
All the juicy stuff.
All the juicy stuff, right? I'm not dissing on EDM clubs. I'm just saying that in the underground space, it's a little bit different on what artists can get away with. In fact, I've got a lot of friends that are in that scene and they're like, I can't play that music, or they get boxed in, right, where they can't play music and take bigger risks, because if you have the crowd that is expecting what they know and you don't give it to them and they become a bit spoiled, how is anyone going to break a new track through in that scene? It'd be terrifying. You play one wrong track, and so you'll never make that same mistake again. And sometimes it takes playing the same track every week for 4 weeks for people to start opening up to it.
Oh yeah, I've had that happen a million times. So I've been playing a track and people who come up and they actively complain, especially
and
at
then
a venue.
next week they come back and go, that's the best track.
And you just feel like pulling your hair out, because they're like, yeah, especially when you're playing at venues where it's not particularly one genre or whatever, that you don't come for, they just come for a party, for a night out. And yeah, when someone requests a song that they complained about like maybe a month or two ago, and I remember I'm like, it's it's part of the job, but yeah, it happens a lot.
It happens a lot. So what we're going to talk about is, and we'll get stuck into it right now, because we keep going around in circles and this stuff, because we can talk about it forever if you guys haven't figured that out. Is why, is that really the time? Okay. Why, why, as a producer, why do I need to know about NFTs? And why is that going to affect my future if I do or don't get involved? And why are NFTs going to change my life straight up as a DJ? And why is it important as a DJ and as a producer to both be embracing this new paradigm? Or I'm going to put a challenge out there. Just be open to it. And if you're a producer and you're sitting on 20 unreleased tracks that are finished, just give a couple of those to some of the platforms and test it. We're not asking you to part with your best tracks that are going to possibly be the next anthem, summer anthem, right? What we're trying to do is give artists and DJs a new opportunity that's never existed before. And we're not expecting everyone to be super trusting and all this kind of stuff. So just be open-minded and start thinking, right, I've got 10 tracks that I want to get out this year. I'm going to give 2 to NFT platforms. Okay, let's try to explain this in 20 minutes. So firstly, NFTs are basically a non-fungible token, which means copies can't be made on the blockchain. Unlike a Bitcoin, which is a fungible token, you can create many Bitcoins. I think there's 21 million or something like that.
That's the number.
That's the number, right? So when you mint, and minting is basically creating the NFT with all the information, the file with all the information, that is then on a database called the ledger, which is on the blockchain, which is public. Anyone can see that. So I'm Dan. Well, no, I'm Kaiser, but I was going to do this I'm Dan thing as an example. But I'm Kaiser. I've released a track. I'm going to mint it, which then turns it into an NFT. And I'm going to mint 10 copies of this track. And then Dan buys one, Richard buys one, and 8 other people buy one. So I've sold out, right? No one can buy the track anymore off me because I only got 10 copies, guys. So for a producer or a DJ who wants that track, they have to buy it off Richard or Dan or the other 8 guys.
The secondary market.
Secondary market or secondhand market, right? That is life-changing, and that's what's going to happen with NFTs. So all of a sudden, I can focus on my close friends, the people that I've got a connection with, who are all around the world with my music, and that's all I ever need to worry about. And they do the rest because they like to have the privilege. You know, Dan likes music that other, DJs, Dan prides himself on having music before other DJs. Who doesn't? I'm a DJ. I want music ideally that other DJs don't have or be the first to play it.
Absolutely.
Right? That's like 101 in DJing is trying to get those bragging rights and stake that claim, because the way it works in club culture is you got to mark your territory on your track. If you play the track all the time in your sets, most other DJs in your crew won't touch it, because you've sort of staken your claim to that, and that's how you can kind of reinforce your collection, right, or your sound. Don't get me wrong, a lot of DJs don't give a shit about that and they'll just play it, right? It depends on your relationship with the DJs and all that kind of thing. So that reoccurring royalty and that ability to control supply and demand is absolutely life-changing. You can't do that at the moment on digital, right? It's impossible. So that is probably one of the biggest reasons. You get to choose now, for the first time ever, your supplier. You get to choose how much you charge for the song. And I think and you get to choose your royalty rate. So you can go, hey, every time someone buys and sells my track, I will get 10% or 20%. What I think and want to encourage most artists is to give away as much of the track as possible, so DJs make more money and they will be more incentivized to buy your track because it's going to be more valuable to them. If you're a producer and you're keeping 80% of the royalties on the secondary market, if you're a producer and you sell, when you sell that first copy, you get all the royalties, right? Or if it's signed to a label, it's whatever the label share is, which is going to start changing too, by the way. And when we get more and more labels involved in Crate and in the secondary market, that's when it really gets exciting, because labels have their shit together, a lot of them, and they're really good at what they do, and they're a very important part of our community.
Yeah.
We met through a German label that I'm signed to. MYR,
Exactly.
And I specifically go hunting on labels. I don't know the artist, but I'll buy the record because I know the label sound.
Yeah,
So they're a very important part of the community. And I meet a lot of cool artists that I end up working with just because I'm affiliated with one of the labels.
But to go back to that, the royalty share that you were saying, like you were saying that you wanted to encourage the smaller royalty, because if they're taking like an 80% cut each time it sells, then the DJs are not going to want to sell it.
Yeah, they're not going to want to sell it, and also
they'll put
they
the
might
price
not buy it.
to a ridiculous price. It might end up paying 600 quid for a track.
Yeah, and they might not buy it because if I'm a DJ, I'm going to be honest, I need to play, I want to have a crate full of 30 tracks for the weekend. I'm looking for specific tracks that have a certain feeling, and a lot of artists are going to be making the same type of tracks. So if one's, got 60%, 70% royalties and the other one's only got 10, I'm going to buy the one where I can make most of my money back, right? And so that kind of thinking, but again, anyone can do whatever they want, really, they've got so much more control and power back to how they want to do things. So I think artists and DJs are going to be experimenting here. And It's going to take a while till we figure out that magic word, the equilibrium of the ecosystem. And the market's going to decide. So the reason why every single DJ producer needs to understand about NFTs and what they can do is because it's going to change each of your lives. A DJ that buys music early, let's say a producer will sell his primary market. Let's say me, who sold those 10 copies, one to Richard, one to Dan. I sold the first copy, the first release. Sorry, I sold the track for $1. So you guys buy the track off me for $1, and then someone sees you guys playing the track, and they're like, "Where'd you get this, man?" Or they Shazam it. This is where it gets good. They Shazam the track. It points them to Crate. They can see, oh, these are the 10 people. These are the 10 people that hold the NFT. They're the only people I can buy the track from. I can't actually get it from the producer unless the producer leaks it to me. Why would he do that? Why would he violate and break his own code? That's
especially when he understands that if it's bought and sold through the method in which he released the song, he makes money. So he wouldn't want to break that in the first place. So it's sort of it keeps us all accountable.
Yeah, it keeps people accountable. And then, so I see Dan play the track. It's no longer Kaiser. This is someone else. So someone else sees Dan play the track. They Shazam it, points them to all the people that hold the track on the Crate store. And they go to Dan, I want to buy the track. Dan's like, bought it for $1. Yeah, what's in it for him to want to give it to another DJ? Well, he will want to make a profit from it. Probably double at least $2, maybe more, maybe $5. And this is where we start seeing the market dictate. And Dan will be able to also buy the track. When he bought it off me, he can set his buy it now price straight away. Or he can just have it not listed. It's really up to the user. So that changes the whole industry, the whole conversation, and it starts making a human conversation over music as well, and me as an artist, that changes my life because I can release less music, let the market decide. And let's say that the 10 tracks that I sold don't move and the 10 people that bought them don't sell them, and I want more people to have the track, and the track's probably gone up to about $20 on the average price. Right?
Yeah.
And no one else is willing to pay more than $20 for that track. But there's a whole lot of people that will buy the track for $5 because there's only 10 copies in circulation, which is nothing. Then I can release a second release. Release it at $1 again, and it will go up to that kind of price. Just like what happens with any kind of sort of stock. If I release too many, I'm going to devalue the first 20, and it's going to piss those people off. Right, so you've got to, now you can control your own supply and demand in drip feed, right? The market.
So interesting.
Very interesting.
As a nuts and bolts guy, I love every single possible thing about this because the way that the market will dictate how things are bought and sold and how people find that sweet spot between setting their own royalties, how many they're going to release in terms of the pressings. I use pressings because I'm thinking about vinyl. So interesting, and it's going to create this lovely little ecosystem between artists and DJs.
It's going to be so interesting to see how it works out.
Yeah. So what we're asking is, how do you get on Crate? How do you be a part of this community? If you like what you've heard or you want to find out more or ask more questions, I super encourage you to reach out to us on our social platforms and join our webinars, because the only way people can join Crate is through invitation only. So it's community driven.
We have a very exclusive offer for people who get in early into the business and integrate with us.
Yeah, into our family of artists and DJs who believe in these things, you know, who want to make music more, who want to dig for music more and love playing tracks.
Absolutely. By getting in early, you will gain the power and the access to choose who you invite into the circle with us to join and make the family bigger.
We're
And
keeping
all you
it
need
exclusive.
to join is a track that's ready to go.
That's it.
There's no sign-up fees or anything like that.
That's it. And all you need to do, probably the first step, get onto the website, register for our webinar. Super exclusive, 10 seats per webinar only. We've got such a good exclusive offer for those who show interest and want to get involved early.
I want to tell them what it is, but I can't because it's just going to ruin the experience. But yeah, for the people that trust in this and really believe in this, that are open to this, again, if you're feeling a bit precious, and I totally respect that, send us maybe what you think is like a track that you might not care about that much, because that's even more powerful. Just because your track you think isn't, I mean, how many times as a producer do you go, oh, that's actually a track that I like the least, but that's the one that the people buy the most, right? But the reason why I don't want anyone to feel pressured in giving their best music away is to show them the power, the fact that they give their best song to, say, a label like Defected that does really, really well, and they make X amount of money, and they put their maybe fourth biggest track that they feel with us, and it makes the same amount of money, and people are buying that track because they appreciate it and because it's rarer. That's gonna shift your perception faster than anything that I can say to convince you with. So, yeah, we're now looking at building our community, and we're starting to get a lot of inquiries of DJs and producers wanting to be involved. It's going to take time for us to develop our platform and just do a lot of testing. Really, really important. And we're looking at around a 6 to 7 month time frame to get our MVP to market. So you've got time, guys. You've got a bit of time. But there's a lot of friends that I've been speaking to that are already sitting on a lot of tracks as well. So it's a first in, best dressed scenario, and memberships are limited. And also the music that's uploaded to Crate is exclusive. So you have to know that you're getting into a situation where it can only be released through us. And that's how we're protecting the DJs and protecting the artists, in the sense where it's easier to protect music that's only bought and sold in one location, in terms of, anyone sort of being a bad actor and illegally uploading it somewhere else and whatnot.
Absolutely. Just to recap on that, we are looking for underground producers and DJs who are looking for a new way to make money off the music they make and monetize the music that they collect. The easiest way that you can get involved right now is via our website, cratenft.co. Register for our webinar. Alternatively, Instagram, Crate NFT Official, Twitter, Crate NFT Official. Pop us a message. I will happily send you a link, answer any questions that you need. Now is the time to take action.
All right, let's end it on that. Wow.
Sounds like a good one.
Thanks for having us, Richard.
You're welcome. Thank you, Kaiser. Dan, our head of music, third team member, it was so awesome having you in the podcast studio with us today.
Good to be here.
Appreciate your time.
We'll see you guys next week. Everybody have a good week. Peace out.
Love you guys.